All right, this is Algebra 1, Test 4, Part 2. We are picking up on number 14, compound inequalities. It says solve the inequality and graph your solution. We have two of the same types of inequalities. They're both and inequalities. Remember with these, you have a left, a right, and a middle. Other than that, you're going to work it the same way you work everything else in order to solve it. You're going to undo your order of operations backwards. You undo any addition and subtraction. We got minus 4. You got to add that to the middle. If you add 4 to the middle, you got to add it to the left, and you got to add it to the right. You got to add it to everything. Negative 4 minus 4 is 0. When you do negative 4 plus 4, you cancel it out. You're left with 2x in the middle, and then 10 plus 4 is 14. No reason to reverse the symbols. All we did was added something. So the first one's going to stay as less than or equal to, and the last one's going to stay as less than. Undo 2 times something by dividing by 2. Again, if you do it to the middle, do it to the left, and do it to the right. 0 divided by anything is 0. That's going to cancel out and leave you with x. 14 divided by 2 is 7. Again, no reason to reverse the symbols because all we divided by was a positive number. Less than or equal to stays like that. Less than stays like that. Second part says to graph the solution. So here is the answer. Graph the solution. You need to show two things. You need to show 0 and 7. Graph the easy part. Graph the part that you read it the way it's easy to graph. X is less than 7. So that means you're going to put an open bubble at 7, and it says less than. Notice which way it's pointing. It's pointing this way. So you're going to graph that way. Graph the other part, this part, 0 is less than or equal to x, by reversing the order of those two. Put x first and put 0 second. Make sure the big mouth is still eating the x, and now graph it the way it says. X is greater than or equal to 0 at 0. Color the bubble in. Greater than is pointing this direction, so shade that way. Here is the graph of the compound inequality. Again, number 15, a left, a middle, and a right. You're going to do it the same way as number 14. Undo minus 1 by adding it to the middle, add it to the left, and add it to the right as well. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0 again. Negative 1 minus 1 cancels out, leaves you with 2x. 13 plus 1 is 14. This comes out to be almost the same problem. It's definitely going to graph the same way. There was no reason to reverse the symbols. All we did was added 1 to both of them. So leave them just like that. Both of them saying less than. Divide by 2. Do it here and here. 0 divided by anything is 0 again. That cancels out and leaves you with x. 14 divided by 2 is 7. Again, no reason to reverse the symbols. We divided by a positive number. Notice the numbers come out to be the same. The only thing that's different is one of them was less than or equal to. In both of these, neither one says or equal to. Graph the one you can see, the one that's written in the easy order with the variable first. X is less than 7. Open bubble. Less than is that direction. Then reverse the other one. The other one is this part. Reverse it. Put x first and 0 second. The big mouth still eats the x though. An open bubble again at 0. It says greater than. It's facing that direction. Make your shading face that direction also. And two extremely similar problems with 7 and 0. Number 16, solve the inequality. So all we're doing with these is getting D to be by itself. Add 10. You know, if you add it to one side, do it to the other. Negative 1 plus 10 is going to be positive 9. No reason to reverse the symbol. All we did was added 10. Distribute before you try to undo anything and bring it across. 5 times A is 5A. 5 times negative 11 is negative 55. We didn't do anything to change the symbol at all. Now undo your order of operations. Undo minus 55 by adding it to both sides. 55 plus 5 is 60. So you have 5A and you got 60. Again, all we did was added. No reason to reverse the symbol. Divide by 5 to get A by itself. And A is going to be 12. Again, we divided, but it was by a positive number. No reason to reverse the symbol. A is greater than 12. Number 18 says, write an inequality representing the situation. All real numbers at least -8 and at most 8. Here's your key right here, and. This is going back to 2 weeks ago, and. At least -8. So we'll take care of that part first. X is at least -8. That means X is going to be bigger than -8 or equaled to -8. So that's one of the inequalities. The other one, at most 8. X is something 8. At most 8, that means it ain't going to be any bigger than 8. It has to be less than 8 or equaled to 8. So if this were an or inequality, we jam the word or in between those two and we would be done. It is not an or inequality. It is an and inequality. If that is the case, put X in the middle. Put the smaller number first. Put the larger number after X. And then fill in what goes in between the X and the two numbers. Okay. This one right here says X is less than or equal to 8. This one has X and then 8, the same order. So make the symbol match. Less than or equal to 8. With the other symbol, it's going to face the same direction. It says less than or equal to that. Remember, you'll never have an inequality that one will go one way and the other one will go the other way. That will never happen. So here is your inequality right here. -8 is less than or equal to X, which is less than or equal to 8. The second part tells you to graph the inequality. Now, the way they're written in this part here is easier to graph. Just graph them as two separate inequalities on the same number line. You need to show two numbers, -8 and +8. This first one here, X is greater than or equal to -8. Closed bubble because it's or equal to, greater than is facing that direction, shade that direction. This one here, X is less than or equal to +8, or equal to means close the bubble in. The arrow's facing that direction, we're going to shade that direction. Remember, with and inequalities, you will always have an overlap. So if you graph it and you wind up with something that looks like this, you know you did something wrong with an and inequality. That's not what it's going to look like. 19 says write a compound inequality that the graph could represent. Write this part first. You know X is something -5. So what's that something? That's what you got to figure out. It's talking about all the numbers that are smaller than -5. So X is less than -5. The only other part you got to do you make it less than or equal to? It's an open bubble, so no, you don't do it as less than or equal to. You leave it as simply less than. Then do the other one, this one here. Do X, and it's something 3. It's talking about all the numbers that are bigger than 3. So greater than is going to go there. The only other part you got to check, is it or equal to? It's a closed bubble unlike the other one, so you will make it or equal to. This is not showing an overlap. So it will not be an and inequality. You don't have to write the X in the middle. All you have to do is make it an or inequality by writing them as two separate ones and jamming the word or in the middle. '20 says find the X and Y intercepts. Remember, to find the X intercept, you plug in 0 for the opposite one. -10X plus 5 times 0 is 80. Anything times 0 cancels it out. It's 0. -10X equals 80. Divide by -10 on both sides. +80 divided by -10 is -8. Your x-intercept is at -8. In order to find the y-intercept, you do the same thing, but you plug in 0 for the opposite one, x. -10 times 0 plus 5 times y is 80. Again, anything times 0 is 0. It's like saying nothing plus 5y. Cancels that part, nothing out. 5y equals 80. Divide by 5 on both sides, and y is 16. X and y intercepts, -8 and 16. '21, solve the equation. Now we're getting back to stuff we did in the first couple months of school. 2 times y 2 times 7 distribute plus 14 equals 22. You want y to be by itself. Undo your order of operations. Undo plus 14 by subtracting it on both sides. 2y is left on the left. 14 minus 22, you know, if you have to borrow it, 12 minus 4 is going to be 8. So you have 2y equals 8. Divide by 2 on both sides. Y is 4. For the second one, you have variables on both sides. Bring your smaller variable over to your larger variable. 2 is smaller than 5. Undo that by subtracting 2x on the left. If you do it to the left, do it to the right. 5x minus 2x is 3x. You still have plus 4 on the right. You still have negative 8 on the left. If you brought 3x to the right, or if you have your x's on the right, bring your constants to the left. It says plus 4 subtracted. If you subtract it on the right, subtract it on the left. Negative 8 minus 4 is negative 12 equals 3x. Get x by itself by dividing by 3 on both sides. A negative divided by positive opposite signs is always going to be negative. 12 divided by 3 is 4. X is negative 4. (23) is finding the slope of the line. No points are highlighted for you. Look for 2 good intersections to where you can use them to count. That's a good one. And then this one real close is a good one. If you pick another one, there's other ones. You could have picked this one. You could have picked this one. It's going to be the same no matter which ones you count. But we'll use those first 2. Remember, slope is how many times you're either going to go up or down over how many times you're going to go left or right. You rise over you run. From the one on the left, we're going to go down once, twice to get to the one on the right. Down means negative 2. Then we're going to go to the right 1 time. Negative 2 over 1. There's no reason to write something over 1. Your slope for that one, and remember, m is the variable we use to represent slope, is negative 2. 24 is finding the slope with 2 points instead of a picture. Your slope is your change of y minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. X, y, sub 1, sub 2. Plug them in if you need to. Y sub 2 is 3 minus y sub 1 is 5. 3 minus 5 over x sub 2 is 6 minus x sub 1 is 1. 6 minus 1. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. 6 minus 1 is 5. You can't simplify that any farther. Negative 2/5 is the slope. 25 says find the slope and y-intercept. If you know slope is the m, y-intercept is the b, it is in y equals mx plus b form. All you have to do is identify m is 1/5, so that's your slope, and b is the negative that goes with it for your y-intercept. Slope is 1/5, y-intercept is negative 4. Write an equation of a line with the given slope and y-intercept. You got a slope and you got a y-intercept, so let's write it in slope-intercept form. No reason to write anything else. Y equals mx plus b. M is 3, so we're going to put 3 right there. B is negative 7. We'll put minus 7 right there. 3x minus 7. (27) Write the slope-intercept form of the equation. You need 2 things to write this. You need a slope and you need an intercept, more specifically a y-intercept, this point. Now you have to estimate that point compared to how we've been doing it. The estimate of that point is 1/2. So let's go with that for right now. B is 1/2. To find the slope, use the 2 points that are highlighted. Count how many times you got to go up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Up 7 is positive 7. Remember, up 7 is positive 7 over how many times you go to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to the right. 8, positive right, to the right, excuse me. So there's your M and there's your B. Y equals mx plus b. M is this one. Sorry, not that one. M is this one, 7/8, and b is 1/2 plus 1/2. Y equals 7/8 x plus 1/2. 28 says write an equation in point slope form, passing through the point with the given slope. This is point slope form right here. We hadn't used it a whole ton. Y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1. When you write this, you write it as y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. You plug the values in. This is your m, whatever this says. That's going to go right there in place of your m. -3/2. Remember with your x and y sub 1 values, it's going to be the opposite of what it says. This right here, x sub 1 says 3. In place of x sub 1, you're going to put it in as -3. Whatever it says, you put the opposite. This one right here says, for the y sub 1 says 1. In place of y sub 1, you're going to put it in as -1. Point slope form, y minus 1 equals -3/2 times x minus 3. (29) Are they parallel? Parallel lines have the same slope. So if both of these were in slope-intercept form, or even if one of them was in point slope form, we can see the slope and we can determine if it was exactly the same. One of them is in slope-intercept form. You can see that its slope is 5. So in order for them to be parallel, the other one has to have the exact same slope. We have to move it to where we can see it. Move -12x over. It leaves you with 3y on the left. When -12 comes to the right, it becomes +12x. 36 is already positive. It just stays right there. Divide by 3 to get y equals 12 divided by 3 is 4x. 36 divided by 3 is 12. Your new m, or your m value of this slope is 4. Compare it to the m value of the other slope, which was 5. Is it the same slope? No. So they are not parallel, where it tells you to explain different slopes. Number 30, write an equation parallel to the given point, to the given line passing through the given point. You're given a slope from that line. Its m value is 1/2. It says it is parallel. Remember, that means it's the same slope. And it passes through this point, -2, 4. So we have a point and a slope. We're going to write it in point slope form. Excuse me. So write it as y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Your m goes in first. That's easiest because it goes in whatever it says. 1/2, you write it just like that. Your x and y sub 1s are going to write them as the opposite of what they say. This is your x sub 1 value, -2. In place of x sub 1, you're going to put +2. This is your y sub 1 value. It says 4. In place of y sub 1, you're going to put -4. Point slope form. Y minus 4 equals 1/2 times x plus 2. (31) says tell whether they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Parallel slopes have the same, parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular, it's a negative reciprocal. Neither of those things are true. So your slope of your first line is easy to find. It's -2. So we have to compare that slope to the other line. Move it over. When you move 3x over, you're left with -6y on the left, minus 3x, minus 6. When you divide by -6, by everything, you have y equals, negative divided by negative is a positive. 3 goes into itself once and into 6 twice. positive 1/2. Negative divided by negative is a positive 1. Here is your slope of your new line, 1/2. Compare the two slopes, 1/2 and -2. They're clearly not the same, so it's not parallel. In order to be perpendicular, it has to be the negative reciprocal. That means one of them's positive and one's negative. We got that happening. One's positive and one's negative. And the reciprocal means to flip it. -2/1, when you flip it, becomes 1/2. So these are perpendicular lines.